robe says, "How much fun was it destroying everyone's hopes and dreams?" Probably both of you. I mean, were there any moments where you were like, "Oh, this is just such a juicy villainous thing," and like you just loved it?
Loved it.
So many gorgeous moments.
I loved Catherine's revenge on Diane de Poitiers, her husband's mistress, who was silly enough to come back to the castle wearing that necklace. And I that her husband had given her, and that, you know, her sense of revenge, as they say, is a dish best served cold. Speaking of which,
sometimes it's a dish served medium rare.
I love the scene where so I sacrificed his horse, but it was worth it just to make my point.
And those scenes are the awful bits, and they're the most fun to do because it's just like we get it to do this. And I loved when these two were, their desires aligned and they plotted together. So that they were the funnest scenes where they could just be like, we'll do this and we'll do this and we'll screw them up like that.
But we didn't do it just to do it for its own sake as characters, and I think that's what was fun about the show. It may have destroyed some people's lives, but it was for the greater good.
That's what's in France.
Yeah. Let's just make that be known.
Did somebody have their hand up? Okay.
Oh, yes. Green hair.
Yeah. It's very bright.
Yeah, can you see me now? I went to Anna's panel yesterday, and she was talking about how she hasn't played a villain yet, and maybe it's because she saw how much fun y'all were playing, having fun playing the villains. So is it more fun to play a villain than the good guy?
It is, yes. But I will say this, it's fun playing something that's complex. So that doesn't have to be a villain. I think that humans are by nature, when their characters are written well, they're neither one thing completely or the other. And that's what's really fun to play. Because I've played roles, even if I think about Anne. Anne was not a villain by any means, but she was an incredible role to play. She had a temper, she could be at times deeply romantic and loyal and loving and kind. She could then lose her temper, take a slate and smash it over somebody's head because they humiliated her, which the character did. She then would have to apologize to her elders, and she did it in a way where she didn't mean it. She learned how to be manipulative. So I think that the thing about characters is what is just the depth of choices that you get to make. And so obviously it's more apparent when you're playing somebody who's a villain. But again, what I think they were really clever about, and I really think that we had our showrunner, Laurie McCarthy, who was a woman, obviously, and an older woman, was not interested in just, Catherine being a bad guy, just being that because she could. It was always deeply rooted. There was a psychology behind it, whether it was healthy or not, or whether it was for good reasons or not. In Catherine's mind, it was righteous. She had a reason for what she was doing. As I think then Narcisse, I'm not so sure about.
Greater good of France himself.
So that part is what is really fun.
Thank you.
Well, Craig, then what do you think was Narcisse's motivation to do some things? I mean,
there's a line, I think, to Catherine. It's like, I'm on nobody's side but my own. And while I think he dressed up he dressed up that with this noble idea that it was about the betterment of France, the longevity, and he's a fictional character. He's not based on anyone in particular, but nobility was a generational wealth. They were. You were trained to continue the power and the wealth of your family, and he believed in the system of how nobility was checks and balances for royalty, and that the peasants were filthy, dirty things that just needed to shut up and work. So it's not much different to now. And so he would, his reasoning would always be security and stability of France and the continuation of our world. But fundamentally, it was entirely selfish, I think. So he truly was out for himself. But I was thinking in that world, you did not survive, particularly in that court world, unless you were playing the game all the time, because there was always someone willing to take you down in any second. So, and I think that's why these two had such a connection, because they both understood that and didn't hide from it. They sort of accepted that in their natures.
And what was interesting was that actually, Catherine had more power. And so before, where the king had the ultimate power, her husband, once the king died, and then Catherine now actually became the regent until her sons were going to be old enough. For a moment, she had the most power, but she didn't necessarily have the respect. But she had more power, so that was an interesting, fun thing. Just want you to remember that.
I got to be king once too. One episode I sat on the throne.
Oh, I remember.
Made a giant crown out of cardboard and wore it all day. I'm king! And then Catherine took it away from me.
At Vala, there's like a whole bunch of A's. I don't know. Besides your own relationship. Besides your own relationship. Because besides your own relationship, who do you think the most fun dynamics were on the show, like apart from your wonderful relationship?
I don't know, fun, but I think Francis and Mary, they made me weep in most of their scenes. Some magic happened with those two on screen that made me believe in romantic love and future and hope and the scene. I think we were speaking about it a few days ago. The scene where it's a ball and Francis is very ill. He's dying, but he has to maintain the sense of the king is all right. So they stagger down the stairs and then get into this room and he dances with Mary, and it's the last time they'll dance. They've talked about we'll dance in Paris, but this is their dance in here, and it's so beautifully shot. And even shooting it, we were all on the sidelines just weeping. And when I watched the scene, because often if you know how it's made, it doesn't affect you sometimes in such a way. But this I wept like a baby when I watched it. So I think they were extraordinary.
Yeah, they were so beautiful, the two of them. They really just had this incredible beauty that was really just,
They were monsters in real life. And I love the ending. It was the last episode was a crazy mashup. Like that sequence of her waking up and he's there for her, and again it's like I've been watching the episode and go, what crazy hell is this? And then that again, it's just like, oh, how beautiful, how wonderful, and seeing them when they were younger and seeing through the transition. So gorgeous.
because the other character that really would have been amazing to play was Mary, obviously. I mean, Mary is an extraordinary character, very hard character to play, because in a way, at times she was the straight man. She had the burden of having to we got to do all this kind of wild stuff, and she had to start off very young in this kind of foreign world that was not friendly, and having to put out a lot of fires and protect herself. And it was a beautiful, I think Adelaide did an amazing job, and it was a beautiful, beautiful character to play.
Hi. Do y'all have a favorite time period that you enjoy playing, like me?
Thank you.
Sorry.
God! I knew you were a woman!
Since like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is like a little bit futuristic, and then this was kind of, the 1500s, and since y'all have a diverse portfolio of characters that you've played, do y'all have a favorite, like, not necessarily character, but just time
Sort of
period.
time and area. I loved playing in Roman world with Spartacus. Because, but, go Rome! Yes! Rome forever!
Rome,
Yeah.
10 for friends.
But I think also the part of the attraction of historical pieces or fantasy pieces in a way is the stakes are so much higher. You know, and I think in everyday drama, our world now, stakes are still high. You know, personal stakes are high, but there and there were times when it's actually no different to today, but it's hidden better. But there was a very small group of people who sat at the top of the pyramid, and their own personal dynamics, their own pettiness, their own humanity affected the fate of all of the people under them. So in Rome, you had a small group of people who chose, you know, would use life like that, own slaves, sent people to fight for their own entertainment, killed each other, as again with the sort of royal families of Europe. And so playing in those worlds, there is an elevation of intent from these characters, and it's wonderful to play. So I think there is definitely, for me, an attraction to that. You know, slight theatricality, the lifting of ideas and consequence. If that makes any sense.
I had a ball playing in rain. I have to say that just this, the sets were exquisite. They were so beautiful. Costumes, and the fact that we weren't going to be in a show, which is interesting, and it's tricky now in contemporary shows too, because a lot of it, there's going to be that moment where people are on their phones. I'm directing now. I can't tell you how many inserts of cell phones I need to do for information. So-and-so takes a picture, writes a caption. So-and-so receives a text, da-da-da-da. And that's just a reality of our world. When you're in different times, none of that is existing, so you're having to run down corridors. Information was still getting run to us pretty fast, but it was like, it is that thing about, you had to write the scenes out more, and then you're just in this kind of, you get to play in a world that I would never have wanted to really have lived in the 1500s at all. What a nightmare for most people. Life expectancy. Drank out of lead goblets or whatever.
Put mercury and lead on your face. Brilliant.
But it's awfully fun to play at another time.
Okay, hi, me again. I was wondering, since we were talking about Frances being at Mary, waiting for Mary at her end, I was wondering what you guys thought would be waiting for Catherine and Narcisse at their end. Would it be some sense of justice? Would it be...
A lot of flame.
I do know, having read one thing which is actually really kind of, that the Valois, obviously, they did not stay on the throne. That family line ended. And there was a tomb, the crypt where Henry, and Catherine was deeply in love with Henry, I will say that. So, and the moment that Henry died, she took away a lot of things that he had given to Diane, including her favorite chateau. There's one episode where I want that chateau. It's like, if I help you out, you're going to give me this chateau. And he's like, I promised it to Diane. She just waits. Henry's gone. She gets that chateau. But there's a tomb, and on the tomb, there's a beautiful carving, again, because of her patronage of the arts. So Henry's sort of lying on his back, and there's a giant cross, and Catherine's like in this motion. It's very, it's like this incredible piece of art. Well, when that family finally fell, I believe that people raided that tomb, and there was a huge desecration of that. They were smashing that thing to pieces. They were not, people were going to try to erase the Valois, and they were not regarded, they didn't get to keep a saintly place. So I find that just fascinating about history too. Really, you're on the side of the winning or the losing, mercy of certain, you have no control over.
Did she make it through to her death still in power or still safe?
Yes, she did. She lived, yes. I think for that, she lived into her late 60s.
She's old.
Then she had gone through, lost a lot of her children for different things, childbirth,
Forgetfulness.
right. Yeah. And tried, in fact, there were deals being made at the time. She was trying to get Elizabeth I to marry one of her sons. And so there were a series of letters. That's what she was working on, was trying to get Elizabeth to marry one of her sons. And Elizabeth was having none of it. Catherine kept trying.
Well, since we're probably going to need to wrap it up a little bit, but we're all clearly fans of your work. So where can we see you? What projects are you doing right now?
I am on Winona Earp. So you can see me on that. That's been a blast. And I've been directing a lot. So I'm directing right now a Lifetime Christmas movie. So that'll be coming out this Christmas. And I'm going to be joining the cast of a new Netflix series called October Faction. I'm going to be directing that as well. So that'll be an interesting.
All the scenes will be about me. Yeah, and it's about me. And then I do some stuff and see.
No, I know. Greg?
I'm going to go back home after this, get painted blue, and play an alien Smurf on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Nice.
Which is my first sort of sci-fi thing. It's very exciting, and I get my own spaceship. So I'm pretty excited. I've never had a spaceship before. I hope it's a big one. Lasers.
Maybe they'll give you some booze.
I know, they have given me boots for this one. I'm semi-tall in this one, too. Just painted blue like a Smurf.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Can we give them a round of applause? And if you have any video or photos and stuff, I saw some of you, please use hashtag #AltHistoryTrack so that we can share them and tell everybody.
History. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.